But as a lawyer, many thanks, Joshua Kiptoo, for your time right here on News Center. Let's get right into it. Is there a possibility that Sonko can reclaim the 4 functions as he's threatened?
Thank you very much. Now, if you look at the nature of the agreement, it is a voluntary agreement between the county government and the national government, which in this case, first thing first, the court nullified that particular agreement and said that it didn't comply with the law. So Sonko has, for example, the first option of just using the court decision, which say that the nature of the agreement or the purported transfer of power from the county to the national government is illegal. So that will be the first option. Secondly, it is a voluntary arrangement where in this case it is more or less like donation of responsibilities. If you look at our constitution, Schedule 4, Schedule 5, they clearly define what the county can do, what the national government can do. So the moment one arm donates to the other, it doesn't mean that they are forfeiting their responsibility. It is more or less a case of interdependence. So if it reaches a point where the entity with its power seeks to reclaim, nothing stops it. So Sonko can. But I'm just concerned about the nature of the agreement because it is more political than legal. So that even if Sonko decides and says that he wants to reclaim back, do you think the national government will play along? Do you think the president and the team will play along and just dutifully hand over? How about the finances? Don't you think they will also frustrate the finances? Because this is more or less like a power play. And for Nairobi County, it has been an issue since, where the national government has always been saying they consider it to be a metropolis. So the nature of the dispute is more political than legal, but legally speaking, Sonko has all the things that he needs if it comes to reclaiming his responsibility. 1, the court has nullified. 2, himself, he can just claim it was a donation. So he can't reclaim back the donation.
All right, you brought in a very interesting point about finances. Taking a look at the Public Finance Management Act, it actually vests responsibility to monitor the management of public finances to the county treasury, not the NMS. Yet another conundrum, don't you think? Since those 4 key functions that were transferred are now under the Kenya Revenue Authority. Now,
that is why I was saying the court found it not to be in order because of those overlaps. If you have the National Treasury, which is considered to be a separate, it should not be under national per se. The National Treasury manages both the county and the national. But the conundrum that has arisen here is you have an amorphous entity in the name of NMS directly dealing with the Revenue Authority, which means NMS does not come under the ambit of the control of budget, which is expected by the Constitution. All county government revenue always goes through the County Revenue Fund, CRF. That is under the PFM Act. But when you introduce NMS, that is ignored. And that is why you could see that the court does not agree with the nature of the transfer of functions. The nature, the way it was done, it does not augur well, even with the devolved system. It does not augur well with our rule of law, because now you'll have a case, what will prevent the next county government being taken over? What will prevent the next county government purporting to donate some of its responsibility to a different entity, not only the national government, but even a parastatal? Now, how do you deal with that? So it is expected, for example, every revenue for the county, it goes through our CRF account, which is in the central bank. The control of budget has to oversee any spending of money through the CRF, but NMS is outside that. So you find that NMS is operating as if it is not operating within the law. You find them even to be too powerful, more than even national government entities, the way they apply. For example, who are they answerable to? It is expected that any finances that touches the county, the first point of oversight is normally the county assembly. But you have a case right now, the Nairobi County Assembly does not have any gravitas, does not have the ability to counter-check, to oversight the NMS. Then, whatever the county assembly, the way it is structured, we are supposed to oversight the county government. Now, what happens in this case? NMS is not answerable to the county assembly. Secondly, they are not answerable to the Senate. They are not answerable to the National Assembly. Who then exercises oversight over such an entity, which is the legislative arm that considers a budget? And you saw the other day they had a dispute between, that is now the county government headed by the governor and themselves NMS regarding the budgets of the county. Because if the governor does not assent to, and the same is not released at the CRF, then you wouldn't have an NMS operating. But what you see is that they are directly allocated by Exchequer, but there is no seem to be oversight from either the national legislative arm as well as the county legislative arm. In fact, it was an absurdity. You find county assembly members going to beg, going to talk to NMS yet you expect them to be the one oversighting.
Legality of this transfer of functions. The Employment and Labor Relations Court actually suspended the illegality of NMS from taking effect for a period of 90 days. That was roughly last month, a move to avert pandemonium or confusion in the staff who had already been deployed. What does this speak to about the legality, bearing in mind the 90-day period? Is this a way out for NMS, would you think?
I think the reason why the court was issuing a 90-day period was just to play safe and possibly give room for political negotiation between the county government and the national government through NMS, because this was a political arrangement. So when the court gives a 90-day period, it is basically to give room. The courts never act in vain. They are alive to the political happenings. They are alive to political machinations. So whenever a court gives a timeline of 90 days, it was expected within this time there must be a smoothing over of agreement on issues from employment to finances, because the bone of contention has been one, employment. Who are the employees, county employees, answerable to? Are they answerable to the NMS, yet they were employed by the County Public Service Board? Who is in charge of the HR policy? Does it mean that NMS will take over the responsibility of the County Public Service Board? That would then mean, technically, you've dissolved the county. Yet dissolution of a county has been stipulated. The process is stipulated by the Constitution. It has to go through the National Assembly, the Senate, and even dissolving a county requires a referendum. So that is why you find the legality being at question. But I found that the court were just acting in a cautious way, possibly to give room for the national and the county systems to be able to smoothen over the kind of situation they are putting themselves into. If it was a voluntary agreement, it must comply with the law. So when the court finds it illegal, it is because despite the agreement, they never followed the law, they never structured it as per the law. So the court is giving them a second chance that everything must be done as per the law. Yes, you can seek assistance of the national government to perform certain functions, but the manner it is done, it must always be structured. Oversight must remain with the county assembly. Second role should be now the National Assembly and the Senate. In this case, that was not done. You've seen some county governments even enlisting the help of the National Youth Service, NYS, to do some projects for them. That is agreeable. That is acceptable, but it should be within the law. If it comes to finances, if it comes to employment, you must stick to the structures that the Constitution provides for the county government. The County Government Act will give you what entity does. For example, if it's about employment, County Public Service Board is at the center. If it is about the finances, the County Assembly appropriates and passes the budget. The governor has to assent. COB, CRA have to be put in line. Otherwise, you cannot purport to have an entity that is overseeing county functions without the input of the Senate, without the input of the Commission of Revenue Allocation, without the input of the control of budget. Then that would make a mockery of our constitutional provisions on finance as well as human resource on public service.
Well, many thanks, Joshua Kiptoo. Yes, it was a voluntary agreement, but it must be within the law. Thank you, Nandi County Speaker right there, lawyer, giving us his take on this particular conundrum that seems to be hitting the Nairobi County. We'll definitely keep you informed, even as the Nairobi Governor, Mike Mbuvi Sonko, definitely declares that he will definitely withdraw from the deed of transfer. Let's move on. President Uhuru Kenyatta recently barred cabinet secretaries from touring the country as part of efforts to curb the spread of the coronavirus disease. The travel ban, which will be